Okay, guys, so let's move on to number 2. Number 2 in our notes. We're going to talk about the South's economy. The South was a plantation economy. What's a plantation? A plantation is a huge farm that raises 1 or 2 crops for money. A plantation is a huge farm that raises 1 or 2 crops for money. These crops are called cash crops. Okay? So, what were the major cash crops of the South? Well, first and most importantly, cotton. And that brings us to our mystery guest for today. Our mystery guest is cotton. Now, what's the deal with cotton? If you've ever picked cotton, you know, first to get it from the stem, you have to go around and pull it off of the cotton stem. It's a very hard, sharp material. It hurts your hands. And then when you're done with that, you can see the cotton has seeds in it. Now, to make the cotton usable, you have to have someone sit there and pick all of the seeds out. And so in the late 1700s, the problem was that in order to get usable cotton, you had to have your slaves sit there and pick through all the cotton. Well, in the late 1700s, somebody decides to change all this. A man named Eli Whitney invents the cotton gin. The cotton gin is a pretty simple machine, and instead of someone sitting there and picking out all the seeds from cotton, you would run the cotton through the cotton gin, and it would separate the seeds naturally, and in the end you'd get this nice, fluffy, finished cotton that you can see right here in your Do Now picture. Okay? So, the cotton gin transformed the South of the U.S. into a cotton kingdom. The economy of the South was largely based on these huge cotton plantations that raised cotton for sale. And as part of the American system, these southern plantations would sell their raw cotton to northern manufacturers who would make shirts, cotton balls, cotton bags, and then sell them in turn. An example of someone who was really involved in this cotton kingdom right here in Halifax County, or just down the road in Halifax County, was, where's my sheet? Where's the sheet that I just had? Oh, okay, right here. Was this guy Willie Jones. Now, if you go to Halifax, you'll see this marker that says Willie Jones. It says, statesman of the Revolutionary Era, leading champion of democracy in North Carolina. Well, that's not exactly true, because he was a huge slave owner, so he wasn't exactly democratic. He owned slaves. He put them to work on his cotton plantation. There's Mr. Willie Jones. This is his nice house, which still stands in Halifax County today. So he was an example of someone who was an integral part of the South's cotton kingdom. Willie Jones. You can look him up. He lives not too far away from here. Okay? Now let's turn on the flip side to the North. The North was based on an industrial economy. An industrial economy is an economy which is reliant on manufacturing, on industry, the production of finished goods as opposed to raw goods. So instead of raw cotton, you have finished shirts. So that's what the North's economy was based off of. Okay? So let's talk about the North versus the South in the American system. The North versus the South in the American system. So the North, we know, it was based on manufacturing, factories. Therefore, the people who had power, the people who had money, were the manufacturers. The rich city dwellers who owned their factories and who made a lot of money producing finished goods. So that's who had political power in the North. In the South, however, the people who had political power were the people who had plantations, who owned slaves, and who made a lot of money, off of slave labor. Men like Willie Jones. So we see already a difference between the seats of political power in the North and in the South. And what does this mean in terms of conflicts or push factors, things pushing the U.S. apart? Well, tension begins to develop over slavery in the U.S. Okay? Because again, these southern wealthy people, they use slaves. Their money is dependent on slave labor. However, the northern manufacturers, their money is not dependent on slave labor. It's just dependent on free people working in factories and then selling their finished goods. Okay? So we're going to stop right now and talk about one example of this tension over slavery, the Missouri Compromise. Go ahead and shut it off.